Thank you very, very much for coming. And what's really, really heartwarming is so many people here, I know, also came to the 9 Dimension seminar. So, you know, there's nothing more encouraging than when you give a seminar and then people like it and then they come back to see the next one. Man, I feel a great sense of responsibility today to give a seminar that's really interesting and informative and enlightening. So actually, even when I was putting the seminar together, and I imagined in my mind that many of the people who had been to the 9 Dimension seminar would come to the next seminar, I felt a lot of pressure to make sure that it was something that you'll leave today and come to my next seminar on the 22nd. So this seminar called The Mission of Humankind, Love, Enlightenment, and the Creation of Utopia. The subtitle almost answers the first heading, The Mission of Humankind. But I think today's seminar is going to really give us an insight into the creation of the universe, the creation of human souls, the mission of human beings, and our place in the universe. So I guess it's a pretty big lecture, right? So I have 2 hours to explain about 100 billion years. So if I speak quickly, please excuse me. All of these teachings come from Master Ryuho Okawa. And Master Ryuho Okawa attained enlightenment when he was just 24 years old on March 23rd, 1981. And since that time, he dedicated his life to spreading what we call eternal truth. Now, we believe that in the world today, people have lost sight of the meaning and purpose of life. And that is the core problem that creates the issues on why our societies don't seem to be working and why there's so many problems, so much violence, so many breakups. Now, people don't really have an understanding of what is the meaning and purpose of life. How can we get out of bed in the morning and go about our daily activity without actually having an understanding or an idea what is the meaning and purpose of life? What am I here for? If we don't understand or have a clear idea about the meaning and purpose of life, we're likely to go quite astray and tend to follow just what we see other people doing, what we're told by the media we should be doing, what's perceived as success, and try to avoid that which is perceived as failure. But through the teachings of happy science, we discover what we call eternal truth. But today, the trilogy which I'm giving a lecture on, and to today's seminar, is part 2 of the trilogy, which is the laws of the sun. So the first one that many people came to, I know many people, I recognize faces here, many people came to the 9 Dimension seminar. And the 9 Dimension seminar explained what the spirit world is like. What are the other dimensions in the spirit world like? And what state of mind will we have to exist in those different levels or stages of consciousness in the spirit world? And what we discovered and through these teachings was that when we leave this world, where we go to completely depends on our state of mind. Right? It's like letting a balloon go and it flies up, or if it's full of air, it drops to the ground. It's just a natural law. We call it God's law, the law of cause and effect. So if we create a mind that's beautiful and light and harmonious and full of many qualities of God, it naturally climbs to the higher dimensions. And the people around us in that dimension will have a similar state of mind. If, on the other hand, we create a mind that is full of darkness and negativity, anger, greed, it naturally falls. And we will find ourselves in a place with people similar minds to that. I don't need to ask anybody what sort of place they want to go to when they die. We all know we want to go to heaven. But actually, what we discover in happy science is that while we're living in this world, our mind is already connected to somewhere in the other world. So in Happy Science, we aim to teach what is called true happiness. True happiness means being happy now and then being happy later also. So to be happy now, it means actually tuning our mind into the heavenly world. So our thoughts and our feelings are in tune with the heavenly world. And we're walking our path through life in this world with our heart already connected to somewhere in heaven. And then when we leave this world, we naturally return to a place where our mind is already tuned into. It's actually, very simple laws. But today is a very big topic. Because just as I said, the 9 dimensions was a journey through the spirit world. This really is an exploration of the whole creation. So we're going to explore some of that. And just as I did in the 9 dimensions, used bits out of a video to be able to show visually ideas of the spirit world. This book, The Laws of the Sun, has also been turned into a movie. So I've been through and taken bits out of the movie, and we're going to look at those today as well. Actually, the movie was so good when I was cutting clips out, it was very hard to leave bits out. So we've actually ended up with a fair bit of movie. There's total is going to be about 50 minutes of movie clips. But our trip is going to be from the very beginning of the mind of primordial God to the creation of all the different consciousnesses, from a universe to galaxies, to stars, to planets. See, the 9th dimension was the ultimate realm of human consciousness. But as I said in the 9th dimension seminar, beyond the 9th there's a 10th dimension. So even who we've been talking about as God, the God of the earth, Alcantari, even though that's a 9-dimensional consciousness, beyond that's a 10-dimensional consciousness, which is like a planet. And beyond that there's an 11-dimensional consciousness, which is a star, our sun. And beyond that 11-dimensional consciousness is a 12-dimensional galaxy, and then a 13-dimensional universe. But each one created what's within it. So you imagine the universe knows I'm a universe, and my job is to create galaxies. And within that universe, many galaxies were created. And then a galaxy is a 12-dimensional consciousness says, I'm a galaxy. My job is to create stars. And the galaxies created the stars. And the star says, I'm a star. My mission is to create the solar system. And it created all the 10-dimensional planets. And then the 10-dimensional planets created an environment where life could live. And that's where we come down to 9-dimensional consciousness of Buddha as we know it, or Alcantari who lives on the earth, and all the different realms below. So this has all given us a realm in which we can evolve and experience joy. Because as we discussed in the 9 dimensions, how a human being feels happiness is through progress. Right? If we're given eternal life, there has to be a way to feel eternal happiness. The way we feel happy is when we progress. While we feel ourselves forever moving towards becoming closer to one with God, this primordial, ultimate God, so there is no end to this evolution, this development, while we feel that, we feel happy. So everything, if someone said, why did God create all this? The one word answer is joy. His joy and our joy. So in the 9 Dimensions seminar, you would have seen this chart already. So I won't explain too much, but it just explains the 3rd dimension at the very bottom, which is the realm where we live, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, so all the different stages of human consciousness that we can experience ourselves. So each one of us can ultimately become a Buddha in the 9th dimension. So each one of us has a Buddha nature. We have the potential one day to become a great enlightened being and experience the oneness with the whole universe. But in this seminar, so as I was just mentioning, we're going to explore the creation of the universe and the high dimensions, the origin of the soul and humankind, the nature of love and the path to enlightenment, the cause of evil and the origin of hell in this world, the existence of previous civilizations such as Atlantis and Mu, and what is the mission of humankind. So like I said, there's a lot we'll cover today. Imagine if we can, where else can we get this information? This is incredible information. Well, all of this information is given to us by Master Okawa since his enlightenment. He's gone on to publish over 900 books and give 1,700 lectures. And he said this information comes to him, channeled to him from the deep wisdom of the universe. It's not just I think this is a good idea. He said everything he knows comes to him from the deepest part of the universe. Okay, so this is the first thing I want to ask everybody though, is where do your current beliefs come from? All of us have got ideas about how things are, where we came from, what is right and what is wrong, what is a soul, you know. Everybody already has ideas about that. And where did they come from? We were given those ideas. Somewhere along the line, often when we were very young, our parents or somebody that we trusted told us something and we believed it and it became our reality. And you know what's amazing? There's people in the world killing each other over something somebody told them when they were little, and it's their belief and their faith now. That becomes so important to them, and particularly in the world of religion, they're actually willing to say, I'm right and you're wrong and I'm willing to kill you for it. It's not actually from their own experience, it's just because somebody told them and they chose to believe it. So what I'm asking people to do today is empty the cup a little bit. Be willing to maybe take in some new information, because I promise, practically everyone here, except for maybe some hardcore happy science people who have been studying for a long time, everybody will be shocked today. Everybody, something will come along today where you're going to think, is this guy kidding? That's impossible. There's no way. There will definitely be something in my seminar today that you cannot believe or cannot agree with. I know I had that experience when I read The Laws of the Sun, which was the first book I discovered in Happy Science in 1994. But some of the other information in it was so good that I thought, okay, I'm just going to put that aside at the moment and I'll worry about that later. Interestingly enough, as time's gone by, that now just becomes actually absolutely normal to me. That information that seemed so far out there before has become actually quite acceptable and quite reasonable and quite logical. So please, when you see something today and you think, oh, can't be, just set it aside. We'll worry about it later. So the first video clip I want to show is actually one step before the video clip. This here, okay, this here, what do you think that is? Yeah, this at first glance might look like a starry sky, but actually in here is one star. There is just one star. The one with the cross. That's a star. Everything else is a galaxy. And you might think that's a big area of the sky, but what they did was the Hubble Space Telescope is they took a tiny, tiny segment of the sky and they looked deep, deep, deep into space. They looked past one star in our sky, just one star in our sky, and captured what was behind it. And what was behind it was galaxies. So in our galaxy, the Milky Way, there are billions and billions of stars. In every one of those galaxies that you see there are billions of stars. You know, we didn't know any of this information until they started with their wonderful science technology being able to probe deeply into space. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 2,000 years ago, where we thought the Earth was the centre of the universe. We thought the sun went around the Earth. We thought the Earth was flat. Unbelievably, a month ago, at the market, somebody came by and he was looking at the books, and I suggested that there could be, you know, he was looking at one from aliens, and I suggested that maybe there could be life on other planets. He said, there's no life on other planets. I said, how do you know? He said, the Bible didn't say so. And then I said, well, back then, though, they still thought the Earth was flat. He said, the Earth is flat. And I realised, wow, okay. Actually, I picked up my book and continued reading because I realised I couldn't really go anywhere here. So I met somebody who actually genuinely believed the Earth was flat. And when I asked him why he thought that, he said, well, actually, there were edges on it because if the world wasn't flat, the water would fall off. So anyway, we all have different ideas. But in here, those are billions of galaxies outside, and it's just a tiny, tiny segment of our sky. Everywhere we look in the sky, if we could look beyond the stars and see further, this is what we would see. So now we're going to just see a picture of the creation of the universe from 100 billion years ago, from primordial God or eternal Buddha.
Listen all to my words. Strive for infinite growth. Seek for all eternity to be beautiful and good.
Of the Sun book, if you want to really understand that more deeply, it explains it a lot more clearly about the creation and the difference between consciousness, spirit and soul, and the different levels of how consciousness moves from the ultimate consciousness down to different life forms. But in there we saw that the 13-dimensional galaxy, a 13-dimensional universe, so the universe itself that we look at, which seems to be infinite. You know, we look out and we say our universe is infinite. There's billions of galaxies in our universe. So that picture I showed actually just showed galaxies. What Master Okawa said is that the primordial God, the ultimate creator, the source of everything, is a 20+ something dimensional being. Okay, this is way beyond our ever been explained or the ideas put forward before. So 20+ dimensional being. So if you imagine a universe which we think is infinite is actually 13-dimensional, and we have to go 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 up to before we start looking at the very, very source of everything. And Master Okawa said that for primordial God, when he looks around, what he actually sees is what the universe that we think is infinite are like soap bubbles floating in space. So there's all these other infinite universes. But the beings that are living in the universes feel as if it's infinite, and it looks like it's infinite, but it's actually, we're just one of many universes. Okay, so here's our first shock for the day. Some people might have already come across this idea before, but Master Okawa said in his exploration that he's discovered, exploration, when I say exploration of the mind, exploration of the spirit world, exploration of the Akashic records, exploration of the history of humankind, that the first life in our solar system was actually created on Venus. So, you know, before this planet Earth, there was actually life on Venus. Now, Venus itself now can't sustain life. I mean, I know we've just put a probe right onto Mars, and when you look, I don't know if anyone's seen the pictures, but when you look at the pictures from Mars, it's a desolate, barren place. But you see, everything goes through process of birth, aging, its peak, a decline, and a death. We go through that. Our car goes through that, unfortunately. But everything and everyone goes through that. Even planets go through that. A planet will have a stage when it's in its infancy. At the early stages, planets are molten. I mean, that's why the Earth's round. It had to be molten at some stage. It can't be just some big chunk of rock that something hit and it flew off. Because if that happened, it would actually be a funny shape. You know, the way to get things round is they need to be molten, like a drop of water. It becomes round. Things naturally become round. In space, if they let water drops go, they naturally become round. So the way our Earth became round was once upon a time when the sun was creating it. At that stage, it was a molten mass, and eventually it solidified. But there can be no life on it when it's on a molten mass. But eventually it cooled, and over time, it actually reached a point where life could live on Earth. So we're going through a period at the stage now where the Earth is in a stage where life can be sustained. Venus can't anymore, but Venus had its time in the past. And actually the Earth will have a time in the future where life can't be here. But we will move off to another planet. So don't worry, we've got plenty of other planets to visit after this one. So then I've got this video clip now that will show actually the creation of some of the life forms on Venus, and actually the very first 9-dimensional being. You know, we said before, primordial or ultimate God, 20-something dimensional being, creates 13-dimensional universe, 12-dimensional galaxies, and then 11-dimensional stars and 10-dimensional planets. And then we spoke about the 9-dimensional being that actually looks after the Earth and creates life on the Earth. Well, the very first one in our solar system was called Miore. And Miore, we're about to see the arrival of Miore and his creation of the first life forms.
The moment is finally upon us.
At last.
There is not a soul creature born from this universe that can resist the desire to know their true purpose and discover their true self.
To discover those answers, one would travel to the ends of the universe.
Yes, and so it is finally time for the divine light of wisdom to be released. Only the creator of the universe can emit such power.
The sun of truth will rise over this entire planet, while the whole universe will be watching.
Listen carefully, my soul. I have here the door to the truth.
Chapter 1. More than 100 billion years ago, the primordial God, the Creator, intended to create the third-dimensional universe.
And then, on one fortuitous day, a tremendous phenomenon gave birth to the stars.
The Big Bang.
Stars were the first forms of life full of consciousness.
And 5.5 billion years ago, the primordial God chose the beautiful planet of Venus for a great creation.
It was Miore, the first ninth-dimensional great spirit of the solar system, who was responsible for creating lives on Venus. And the very first of these experimental life forms was a cross between an animal and a plant.
So, an animal and a plant. Now, anything can be created. You know, it might seem strange. Oh, an animal and a plant, a plant that can walk around? Because we don't have plants that can walk around, right? But actually, plants are pretty clever at getting around. They use their seeds and things to get around. But you know, anything can be created. When I saw this, I thought, wow, that seems a bit radical. A plant that can walk around. But then I thought, well, if we were to go to another planet and start telling them about giraffes, they probably wouldn't believe that we had such a creature either. You know? So anything can be created. And throughout time, I mean, so many things have been created on the Earth. They say 99% of all life that existed is now extinct. So there must have been some absolutely fabulous animals, maybe unicorns, maybe mermaids, maybe all these sorts of things that they talk about in our fables and lost stories, that they actually exist. Because anything that can be thought of in the mind can be created in the world. So El Miore, we're going to find out that El Cantari and El Miore actually are pretty much one and the same. And the word El means light. So El Miore actually probably means like light of Venus. So El Miore was the first nine-dimensional consciousness, created life on Venus. And then he started off with these plants, and then he developed many life forms and went on, and eventually created human beings. And then from human beings, they created a wonderful society. But I could explain all that. But this next clip actually shows it beautifully. How over a period of time, on the planet Venus, they went from the beginning of creation to the end of reaching an ideal state, a place where they reached perfect harmony with the beings that were there. And you know, and after that, well, there was a bit of a cataclysm. But after this here, I'll explain about why such a cataclysm could take place.
But after that, El Miore divided his creation into plant and animal life forms, and he watched as they evolved over the next 2 billion years. Until one day, El Miore decided to create human beings on Venus.
Since then, over 1 billion years has passed, and the planet has been witness to the rise and fall of many civilizations. Eventually, Venusians gained the ability to travel through space and communicate with other planets.
They created a utopian society. Life in this society was based on the principles of love, knowledge, reflection, and development.
However, one day the primordial god said to El Miore,
I am delighted that the experiments on Venus have been such a success. They have surpassed my greatest expectations. But now that perfect harmony has been achieved, further evolution henceforward will be difficult. Massive volcanic eruptions will soon take place on Venus. You must move some Venusians to other neighboring planets, where they may assist with the evolution of those planets. The other Venusian high spirits must take part in the creation of an entirely new spirit group for the planet Earth. But on Earth, you must start from the very beginning. Call upon the spirits from the other planets. Educate them so that they may create an ideal planet that will contribute to the evolution of the great universe.
So, you know, this is one of those points, we're back to where I said at the beginning, you're going to see some parts that are a little hard to believe. But is it so hard to believe that maybe, you know, all this time ago that they're on Venus, that they could create a space age society, a society that became so technologically advanced that they could travel to other planets? We're reaching that stage ourselves now. You know, humans very soon will enter the space age, and we ourselves will be able to travel to other planets. See, Master Okawa said the universe is teeming with life. And it's funny when people say, I wonder if there's life out there. Man, it's not just life out there, the universe is teeming with life. And we're about to become aware of that. You know, humans haven't had much, obviously there's many people have seen spacecraft, and they seem to have become more and more prevalent now. In New Zealand, actually, at this moment, there's a lot of reports in certain areas where people keep seeing lights in the sky and things. So I believe that they're starting to make themselves known, because we are entering the age of the space age where we will start intermingling with people from other planets. You see, we only need a few to turn up, and suddenly it becomes our reality, right? As soon as a few aliens turn up in spacecraft, suddenly it's our reality, it changed, and now we have to start to deal with aliens. Man, we've had enough trouble dealing with people from other countries, people with different skin color, people from different religion. How are we going to deal with people from other planets? And this is part of the teaching of Happy Science, because not only in Happy Science do we learn that everyone has Buddha nature, everyone has divine nature, we are all equal in our divine nature, aliens also have divine nature. And so no matter how strange and weird they might seem to be, what we will be all learning later as our progression goes on is that aliens themselves are worthy of our love. You know, so anyway, now as for the destruction of Venus, you know, you might think, wow, if you found perfect harmony and created perfect harmony in a society, why would primordial God say, oh, soon there's going to be a great disasters on Venus and no more life, physical life will be possible? But it's like an artist who paints a painting. We are creators, God is a creator. We are all children of God. That's why we love to create, because God himself, one of the main attributes of God is creation. So, but once you've created something, right, you've finished. That's the joy. Joy is in the creating. Like the artists, the musicians, anybody who creates anything. Once you've finished creating it, right, you've finished. The joy was in the creating. You can't create something and then stand back and admire it for the rest of your life and feel happy. You know, if it was you do one beautiful painting and the rest of your life you can just stand there and admire it and feel happy. It doesn't work like that. It's actually in the creating where the joy is felt. So once Venus had reached a state of ideal perfection, then actually it was time to move on and start again and find the joy of creation. So Alcantari, or El Miore, then moved to Earth. And you saw in the picture here where he came to Earth and suddenly the Earth was enveloped by a great golden light. You know, well, we believe a God, or Alcantari, is the light of the Earth. So when we say light of the Earth, we literally mean the light of the Earth. So when souls are reincarnating between this world and the spirit world, like we saw in the 9 Dimension seminar, the light that they're living in is actually the light of Alcantari. So God is light itself. And when we live in the spirit world, we're living in that light. And that light itself is the source of our spiritual energy. And if we are always aware of that, you know, there's a wonderful gratitude that wells up in our mind when we become aware that the only reason we are always alive is because of this light that we are receiving from the higher realms. Okay, so as we said here, El Miore moved to the Earth, created a spiritual field and changed his name to Alcantari. Alcantari, as I said before, El means light, Cantari means earth. So Alcantari literally means light of the earth. And when the time was right, he transferred the spiritual life force of the Venusians to the earth. Now in the laws of the sun, we also discovered that not all of the life forms came to the earth. Some of the life forms were sent off to other planets to aid to the development of those different planets. Now, I know before I actually discovered happy science, or just around about that time, I had a lot of interest in different things. And I was also reading books. I don't know if anyone here has read a book called Bringers of the Dawn, Teachings of the Palladians, right? And this was about a group of people who said that they were channeling thoughts from the Palladians. And they said they came from a group of Pallades, which we know of as the Seven Sisters. And that these beings were highly advanced and that they were coming here to help with the development of the earth and bring a new vibration of love. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And they even had exercises on how you can speed up your chakras. I remember one of the exercises they had put my thumb out and had to spin around, and I imagine, oh, the chakras get spinning. Well, I did that quite a bit. I don't know if I really noticed any difference. I just got a little dizzy sometimes. But their teaching was really wonderful. The idea that you know, they also were related to human beings from a distant past. Well, you know, then I find in Master Okawa the same teaching, that actually, yeah, the Palladians, they originally came from Venus. So Venus, people from Venus went to the Pallades, and they've been having a very highly enlightened society on the Pallades. There's other systems called Vega. And actually Master Okawa does soul readings. Now, in the old days, he used to do past life readings. And people who were fortunate enough that would get the opportunity to have a past life reading, you know, basically when Master Okawa does it, you'll see him, he uses his hands and he'll go like this, and he uses his hands to read the person, and he tunes in, and he will go back into their past lives and look for the cause of their problems and difficulties and give them explanations. But then he started going past life readings, going back further and further and further and further. And then he started to discover, oh, your soul's not from the earth. You actually came from, and he gives descriptions of where people originated from. Now, they might have been on the earth here for you know, millions of years, their soul, hundreds of thousands of years or however long, but actually many people who are living on the earth today are not originally from the earth. So we are a great big melting pot. This earth is a great big melting pot of souls from other planets. And when you think about like countries like Australia and New Zealand, right, what gives us the strength in our countries, what makes them so wonderful is all the different people from the different countries that come to one country, and all the different cultures that we can experience and understand, and the different foods and the different ways of life and the different music and the different dancing. But the same thing's happening on Earth. This Earth is an exceptional planet. It is a melting pot for different beings from all around the universe that come here and integrate. It may also be part of the reason why we have so many problems with everybody getting on, but with the right teaching, with the right understanding, with this way of thinking, we can overcome our differences. Okay, sorry. So we're going to see now El Miore moving the life forms to the earth and creating some life, and then when the time was right, manifesting human forms onto the earth.
Since the living conditions created on Earth were fairer than on Venus, higher goals were set for a more dynamic evolution. Thus, a special environment had been created. one in which souls would be able to evolve eternally.
The time has come to begin the creation of the human race here on Earth.
It was at this time that El Miore, the former ruler of Venus and the first ninth-dimensional being of the Earth, changed his name to El Cantare. A name that embraced the meaning of the beautiful land of light, Earth. El Cantare moved the spiritual life force of the Venusians that he had once created to the planet Earth, and he granted them the power of procreation.
Live as human beings. Wisdom and courage. Grace and compassion.
And so, human beings were created on Earth.
Actually, in the Laws of the Sun, Master Okawa explains how, thought or consciousness can start with thought, and just as water can exist in many different forms, we can have water as vapor. Water can be, a cloud. It actually, even in the air where we can't see it and it's invisible, it can also become ice. So the same thing can be in many different forms. And Master Ryuho explained how the original forms, when they were created, the human souls, and manifested on Earth, at first they were actually quite transparent, wispy beings. So it's not like our solid beings that we are today. It was beings that were actually probably a lot more light and made of light and transparent than the solid matter of people are today. But so now this was the origin of the human beings on Earth. And then after a period, these were all very, very high quality souls that have been manifested onto the Earth. And at this stage, El Cantare decided that it would be good to have some input from some other nine-dimensional beings from some other star systems. And so at this stage, he invited some other highly evolved beings from other 9 dimensions, from other planets. So as I said before, the universe is teeming with life. This whole idea of stars with planets 10-dimensional conscious planets and 9-dimensional beings on the planets, is everywhere. So the 9-dimensional beings in our planet can actually communicate with each other to the 9-dimensional beings in other planets. So Alcantari invited, first off, 3 great spirits to come to the earth. And these 3 great spirits that we know of as today were Jesus, Confucius, and Moses. He said their original names were Amor, Cherubim, and Moriah. And he invited them to come from their various constellations, which are Sagittarius, Cygnus, and Cancer. And they came to the earth to make up a plan for how best to undergo the evolution of the earth. So let's have a look graphically at the visit of these 3 great spirits, or the arrival of these great 3 spirits to the earth.
The descendants of those human beings multiplied steadily. And when the population exceeded 770 million,
These humans should have the opportunity to experience leadership.
So Alcantari then decided to have them teach and guide other human-like entities who were transferred to Earth from neighboring planets, and he invited 3 grand spirits to come together to draw up the master plan.
These 3 grand spirits from the 9th dimension presented their ideas on how to integrate the human-like beings into Earth.
Okay, so those were the first 3, and as they said there, that Alcantari thought it would be great for these spirits to be able to experience the chance of leadership. And actually all of us at different times are teachers and students, and both is fun, right? Everyone at different times in our life, we have a chance to be a teacher, at other times we're a student. And we love to learn and we love to teach. So I can imagine these wonderful high-grade spirits from Alcantari, if they're all at a similar level. Of course, what a wonderful idea. Let's integrate some beings from other planets at all different levels. Let's put within our spiritual group, or the different dimensions, let's create this multi-dimensional structure where all the different souls are existing and they can experience both learning and teaching. So these 3 came together, and in the Laws of the Sun it didn't mention that they actually brought any souls with them. But they made a master plan, and from this master plan they invited 6 more 9-dimensional spirits. And these 6 will make up the total of the 9-dimensional spirits that are still in our system. And during the 9-dimension seminar we did speak about this a bit, how the 9th dimension has these 10 great beings that have been overseeing the development of the earth. So now we'll see the actual arrival of the other 6 spirits, and these ones actually brought billions of souls with them. This was where we had an influx of souls into the earth, of these billions of souls. And actually we'll learn very soon, just after this was really the beginning of some of the problems on earth. Some of the problems on the earth that we're facing now actually were caused, this was the origin. Well, not quite now, but very shortly.
1 billion new immigrants arrived from the constellation Orion in a huge fleet. And with them came yet another 3 grand spirits. Next came the 3rd group of immigrants, totaling 2 billion entities who journeyed from Pegasus, and they brought with them 2 more grand spirits.
as a result, the 10 ninth-dimensional grand spirits all assembled and set forth to guide the terrestrial spirit group of Earth.
So they are still the same 10 nine-dimensional spirits that have overseen the development of the Earth today. And in the Dharma of the Right Mind that many of the people would have received when they, last time, the little blue book that we have in Happy Science, you'll notice in that prayer book, you know, in the great universe is light, and light is the life of Buddha. But then it talks about the 7 spectral colours. You know, we know that if you shine light through a spectrum, you end up with, through a prism, you get the spectrum of light, which has got 7 colours. Well, as we can see, and you might, from the witnessing of looking at these, each one of these 9-dimensional spirits embody a colour of God's light, which gives them a certain responsibility for something. For instance, Master Okawa says the white light is the colour of love and salvation. Jesus is responsible for the white light. The red light is the colour of justice. It defeats evil. It's also the colour of miracles and leadership. And Moses operates under the red light. The purple light is the colour of Confucius. It's the colour of reverence and order. So when these great beings come to the earth, their teachings are based on their understanding of the truth through the colour that they embody. And this actually is part of the reason for the differences and the conflicts in religion, because one might have a certain idea and it conflicts with another idea. For instance, in the idea at the time of Moses was a great leader, and also did many miracles, and actually conquered his enemies. And then after Moses, there was the prophecy that there would be a new Saviour or a new Messiah. And so people were expecting somebody like Moses to come along and beat up the enemy and defeat the enemy. But then Jesus came along, and Jesus taught them love. And Jesus taught them that if you have a problem, you should forgive people. If someone slaps your cheek, turn and offer the other cheek. This is completely different from the teachings of Moses. And so then they couldn't accept the teachings of Jesus. And then, of course, we end up with the conflict in history that we know of today. So these 10 9-dimensional beings in total reside at the top of the 9th dimension. Well, at the very, very top of the 9th dimension is Alcantari. And this is why Happy Science is aiming and probably able to integrate all the different thoughts, because Alcantari himself is the source of all the teachings. So from the Alcantari, the light comes down, and we can see, for instance, in Christianity, Jesus said, "Our Father in heaven," or "When I speak, it's not me who speaks, but our Father who speaks through me." There was always someone in Jesus' teaching that he was receiving the light or the teachings from, and this is Alcantari. And in Islam, Muhammad spoke of Allah. He received teachings from Gabriel, but he spoke about Allah, the God, somebody higher than all the rest of them. And this is also Alcantari. And in Moses' time, Moses spoke to the burning bush. And the burning bush said, "I am that I am. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." So Moses also, there was somebody that he spoke of at the very top. So we now come to understand that the name of this consciousness is Alcantari, or light of the earth. But you see, the teachings of Happy Science, from what we've been learning today, go far beyond that. We know Alcantari's responsibility is this earth. That's why he's the God of the earth. But we know that the consciousness that carries on up, there's a primordial God, 20 plus something dimensional being. So what Alcantari really is a projection of the ultimate God into the 9th dimension. So Alcantari is a prediction of ultimate God who creates universes, but put in a way in the 9th dimension so that we can understand what is the essence of God. So we're about to move into, as today's seminar, Love, Enlightenment, Creation of Utopia. Very soon we're going to move into also the teaching on love, because we're getting closer and closer towards current day. First of all, we're just going to move on actually to a point where one of the consciousnesses that came from a Magellanic Cloud, which was one called Enlil, and he's the one here on the far left-hand side. He came from what's called the Magellanic Cloud, which is the type of beings that live there are actually like reptilian. So they're part of the reptilian race. And of course, that always sounds a little scary, but hey, it's not so scary. I've got some friends that are reptilians, because they've had readings from Master Okawa. And actually, we've discovered within Happy Science, there's actually people whose origin was reptilian. So yeah, don't be afraid of the reptilians. They're not so bad after all, until they want to eat you. But anyway, just don't go to bed in the same room with them. Anyway, that's not true. So, but what happened around about 100 million years ago was that this Enlil, the reptilians, what they have is they're very, very big on scientific knowledge. So their planet evolved with science and technology, and mostly because of war. They're quite a warring race. And if you look on the Earth, whenever we've had wars and conflict, our technology screams ahead. Jets were developed during war. Planes really take off during war. When we have to fight, we really work out how to create things and build things. So that's when we move ahead. So because the reptilians were a warring race, they moved ahead scientifically very quickly. And then they learnt how to travel in space, and they were able to travel from planet to planet. So this reptilian race were actually, this Enlil had an idea that we've got so many souls on the earth now from the Alcantara spirit group, but we still have so few from the immigrants. We need more immigrants. So he had an idea of building what we could say would be a big spiritual photocopier. But, you know, we've all used photocopiers. And have you ever noticed that when you make a photocopy, the copy's never quite as good as the original? And I think the same thing happened because they basically took the life force of some beings from around about the 6th dimension, which people who studied the 9th dimension knows the level of enlightenment that is, and then tried splitting that up into many souls or dividing it into many souls. But unfortunately, it had a little bit of an effect in the future. So we're just going to actually go on in a second, and we're going to see the creation of these souls through what Master Okawa said was called a pytron. So it's like something created in the spirit world through the mind of Enlil, which enabled them to split souls. So this might be another one of those moments when it becomes a little bit unbelieving, but then if it's too hard, just put it aside and worry about it later.
As it stands now, Alcantara's spirit group has increased its numbers to more than 40 billion, whereas the total of all the immigrant groups represent less than 10% of the whole population. The number of immigrants needs to be increased.
Are you proposing then another immigration?
No, they can multiply on Earth. We must create a pytron. It will be used to reproduce the spiritual bodies of the immigrants. And at first, the plan seemed to be working. However,
many of the bodies who were recreated with the pytron forgot their spiritual nature. They soon abandoned themselves to a world of materialism and other physical desires.
Everyone's doing it. Shouldn't we enjoy ourselves while we're still alive?
The next world? Who cares?
What's so wrong with having fun now?
Where are we?
What's happening? What's going on here?
After their deaths, these spirits began to inhabit the bottom level of the spirit world.
And this was the beginning of hell.
So here we have the beginning of hell, the beginning of a big problem that's in the world today. I used to think hell was a bit of a fairy tale. When I was growing up and going to Sunday school and they were teaching me about hell, I figured it was actually just their threat to make me do what they wanted me to do. But I really believe that since there is a world beyond this world, and since the state of our mind determines the type of world that we exist in the other world, I've definitely met people in my life that don't mind hurting other people, that I imagine that when they die, I can't imagine them being in heaven. So I have no doubt that there is a hell realm. So this was the beginning of the hell. So as we studied in the 9th dimensions with these different levels and corresponding to the state of the mind, the hell realm corresponds to the very bottom of the 4th dimension. So we live in the 3-dimensional world here. In the 3-dimensional world, all the different souls from all the different dimensions incarnate here. But just beyond this world, in the spirit world, the 4th dimension, at the very, very bottom of the spirit world, we could say it's like the sludge of the spirit world, exists a realm of negative conceptual energy. Now, the only way that this realm can exist is it needs negative energy. Right? Well, the negative energy that fuels hell comes from the people on earth. Now, God didn't create hell. God didn't create hell and say, oh, you didn't believe in me, I've created this terrible area, I'll put you there. actually hell was created by human beings. So it's actually up to human beings also to get rid of hell. Right? It's our responsibility. We created it. We've got to get rid of it. So this was the first part. This was the first very beginning stage. They'd created some souls. The souls lost their spirituality and started to live materialistically. And when they died, they started to inhabit the bottom of the fourth dimension. So there were some negative clouds starting to gather in the bottom of the spirit world. But that was just the first part. The next stage that came along that really added to the growth of hell, and this story's been passed down in particularly Christianity, but probably other religions as well, that there was an archangel who came to earth and lived a life of debauchery and many problems. He created many problems for many people, and he created a very dark mind. And when he left the world, he couldn't return back to his high heavenly status, which he was originally, as I said, archangel. Well, an archangel's from the 8th dimension. Well, this is the dimension just below the realm of the Saviour. So it's a very, very high realm indeed. But he couldn't return to his high realm, but he still had a lot of spiritual power. And I guess everyone can already guess the name that I'm going to mention, but his name is Satan or Lucifer. Actually, we know of him as Lucifer now, but Master Okawa said his name originally was Lucifer. All the archangels have L on the end of their name. Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, and there was Lucifer. But when he fell from grace, I say grace, Michael, thank you for the book you gave me on grace. Yeah. When he fell from grace, his name was changed from Lucifer to Lucifer, and he became the powerful demon in hell who has been trying to control the earth ever since. And the way to control the earth is to control the humans, and the way to control the humans is to find attachments in their mind, to find parts of their mind that tune to the negative way of thinking, and then try to promote that way of thinking and try to get humans feeling negative rather than positive. Because, you see, energy never disappears. Energy can be converted. As human beings, we have the ability to actually receive God's light and amplify God's light. We are children of God with exactly the same attributes as God has. So we can actually receive this light from God and we can amplify it and put it out there. Right? But we also have the ability to receive God's light and feel hatred or feel anger or feel greed. So we have the ability to create negative emotions. And those negative emotions, even though we might not see them, the moment we feel them, they actually go somewhere. Those feelings go somewhere. And hell exists because of the negative feelings that are being created by human beings, and that is fueling hell. So let's have a look at our good friend, not such a good friend, Satan, falling to hell and the problems that caused.
Before its numbers reached 1 billion, the production of human spirits by the Pytron was banned. And then, some 120 million years ago, one of the leaders from the Magellanic Cloud was reborn on Earth. He became attached to status, material goods, and sensual pleasures, and as a result, became corrupt. He fell to the bottom world, unable to return to the higher dimensions. Incensed, he instigated a rebellion against the high spirits who dwelled in heaven.
for he was jealous of Enlil, the leader of those who emigrated from the Magellanic Cloud.
The poison of jealousy has the power to turn even an angel into a devil.
Until finally, he became the king of hell, conspiring with all the other evil spirits residing in the underworld.
The dark thoughts of these evil spirits of hell formed a mass of impenetrable clouds, which was so dense that it blocked the light of God, leaving the realm of hell to waste away in utter darkness.
So this is the origin of hell, and that's where we have got some dark clouds that are, because the bottom of the fourth dimension is so close to the third dimension, it actually has quite a strong influence on the people in the third dimension. And you know, Master Okawa, in one of his lectures that he gave in Brazil, he was talking about love, and the opposite of love. And often we think of the opposite of love is hatred. But he said actually he believes the opposite of love is jealousy. And this was just mentioned on here. You know, jealousy is the opposite of love, not the hatred. Because actually we don't generally hate somebody for no reason, right? But we can hate them if we're jealous of them. So, and he said that actually jealousy normally comes from, we're not generally jealous of people if they have you know, something completely out of a field that we're interested in. But if I want to be, say, a great soccer player, and my friend's doing better at soccer than me, I could become jealous of him. But I'm not going to probably be jealous of someone who's becoming a great piano player. So people who are in our field of interest, people who have what we want or are like what we want, we can tend to become jealous of them. So say we want to be wealthy in our life, we can become jealous of rich people. But Master Okawa said, actually, this pushes us away from our ideal. So jealousy is definitely something for us to watch out for in our lives and be aware that it's actually a mind that's closely connected to the hell realm. And he said that the way to overcome jealousy, the antidote to jealousy, is the opposite, which is a heart of blessing. So if you want to be wealthy, when you see wealthy people, bless them and think, oh, how wonderful it is for you to be wealthy. I plan to be wealthy as well. You know, I want to be your friend and good luck. I'm so happy that you became wealthy. That sort of attitude will move you closer to wealth. Okay. So originally, Lucifer was an archangel from the 8th dimension, as we already discovered, and originally his name was Lucifer. And then he became Emperor of Hell and been trying to control the people on Earth as a means of getting energy and an escape from hell. See, Master Okawa said around about 70% of illness on Earth is created from the possession of evil spirits. Once again, that sounds like a little bit of a fairy tale. Evil spirits, you know, is that just another threat that someone's going to use? But actually, there are spirits whose mind are caught in negativity, and they want to escape the hell realm. It's no fun being in the hell. But how can you get out of hell? The way to get out of hell is to find somebody on Earth who has got a mind similar to your own. And if you can find somebody on an Earth with a mind similar to your own, like a magnet, you can attach yourself to them. And then you can be in that person's body with them. So, you know, this is why attachments are so dangerous on Earth, and especially drugs and alcohol and things like that, because there's many people who have had those strong attachments. They've left this Earth. They still have that attachment. But, you know, if you really, I'm not saying it's wrong to drink. Like Master Okawa always talks about the middle way. You know, nothing wrong with having a nice glass of wine, you know, dinner and things like that. So we're not talking extremes. I'm talking about the desire to get drunk all the time. If you have a mindset like that, then there's spirits that have left this world that are still yearning to be drunk. They want to have that feeling of being drunk again. And they will seek you out and they will convince you, why don't you have a drink? And then you start to drink. Why don't you have another drink? And they get into your mind and you become not your own. And a lot of these people, I don't know if other people have experienced this, I know I have myself, is that you have a friend who's a really quite nice, logical, wonderful person, and then they, after a few drinks, they become like a monster. They really have changed, but literally there is somebody else in control now. So this is what's going on behind the scenes. This is what's happening. This is a reality. And once we wake up to this truth, then we can become determined not to allow ourselves to become part of that being controlled by part of that, by evil spirits. And Master Okawa said about 70% of illness are created by evil spirits. If we could get rid of the possession of evil spirits, a lot of the illnesses in the world will just disappear. And a lot of the miracles that we see in happy science are when people practice what we call quest for, exploration of the right mind, where people reflect on themselves, find their wrong ways of thinking, change their mind, and suddenly illnesses disappear. Well, in those cases, the illness was actually because of a possessing spirit. As soon as they changed their mind, the magnetism of the spirit went away. They went away, and literally in instantly or days or a couple of weeks, people can cure all sorts of illnesses. So anyway, we've seen now that there's been a fall from grace. We've seen that we've got a lot of people now in hell, and some dark clouds have been created which have cut off the light of Buddha. So unfortunately these souls are now suffering in the hell realm. And these souls are finding ways out to possess people on earth. Well, the earth has become a darker and darker place, and dark clouds are spreading all around the earth, which is against obviously the will or mind of God. So how does the earth react? And what we're about to witness now is what happens when things get too bad on the earth. And unfortunately this sort of thing has happened time and time over again. And part of the reason of happy science existence is to stop it happening again in today's world. So let's have a look to see what happens when clouds on the earth just become too much. The dark clouds become too much.
Our problem is how this will affect the earthly world.
The hungry spirits of hell intruded upon Earth in search of new sources of energy.
This is mine, all mine.
Why not have some fun?
Go beat him up.
The spirits from the underworld found those earthly beings who had dark thoughts and possessed them, fueling their desires and feeding off their negative energy.
What's so wrong with having fun?
Over the course of the next 120 million years, the world was filled with all sorts of evils and forms of chaos.
But when the beings who had been possessed by the evil spirits died, they could not return straight to heaven. And so, the population of hell kept growing, and the spirits continued to venture onto Earth in search of more sources of energy. This resulted in the population of hell increasing, with its inhabitants coming to Earth again and again.
I don't understand.
She's your about saying, we're gonna take all his worth. We're gonna take all his money. It'll be great.
What we are dealing with is a vicious cycle. Something must be done.
And so, in order to purify the world, the Earth consciousness called forth great catastrophes to befall the planet Earth.
Human beings could no longer survive there, but neither could the inhabitants of hell.
They kept falling deeper and deeper into the abysses within hell.
Yeah, so natural disasters. That's how you stop the negative thoughts of human beings. Like you said, unfortunately, people can't live there, but then there's no more thoughts going to the feeding the hell realm. Well, you know, like we're talking about different stages of consciousness before, the Earth itself is a 10-dimensional consciousness. We see the Earth as a physical body, but it has a spiritual body. So the Earth can easily react and create earthquakes and tidal waves and all sorts of things. So this is the way for the Earth to be able to purify itself. But, you know, we can stop this sort of thing from happening. And I mean, this is talking about a long way back, and we're about to move into now a time, we're getting closer and closer to modern history, We're very shortly about to start looking at the continent of Mu. And people might have heard of the continent of Moa before, Moa or Mu. There's legends being passed down. And so we're going to start looking at the existence of the civilizations of Mu. But this is a background. What we've been looking at up to this point is a background on the creation of life on Earth, the human souls, the introduction of souls from other planets, and then the beginning of the hell realm through the negative thinking of some beings on Earth, and then the falling of one of the great archangels to become an emperor of hell. So in order to, as we just said here, in order to purify the Earth consciousness created huge natural disasters, and the energy of hell comes from the negative conceptual energy of people living on Earth. So that's why they had to, get rid of some of the people on Earth and stop the negativity. Right, so there was a vicious cycle that had been created. So what happened was this kept going through over and over and over again. So Alcantari hatched a plan for how to overcome this problem. And let's have a look at his thoughts on how we can overcome this problem of this perpetual problem of Earth building up, people falling down, having to create destruction, civilization rising, being corrupt, having a natural disasters again. Let's have a look at his thoughts on how we can stop this.
Another civilization has been destroyed. We couldn't help it. It was the only way to purify the world on Earth.
If only we had some other way to break this vicious cycle. Then there would be no need for such destruction.
The world on Earth should be purified through the inner light of its own people. If the earthly world is filled with light, it will eliminate the source of negative energy. And eventually, over time, hell itself will disappear. Let the world on Earth be illuminated once again. Let it be filled with the sun of truth.
In order to realize this, Alcantari sent branches of his own spirit down to Earth. And with the power of enlightenment, he also produced many guiding spirits of light to help those on Earth.
The guiding spirits of light lit up the hearts and minds of many people, and slowly they began to purify the earthly world.
Meanwhile, the inhabitants of Hell continued in desperation to expand and gain control of the world in an effort to escape the agonies of Hell. And for over a period of more than 100 million years now, there has been a constant battle between the high spirits and the inhabitants of Hell.
But why doesn't God simply destroy these evil spirits from hell?
Because he granted freedom to all souls.
Even the freedom to do evil.
Evil is a distortion caused by the conflict of free will.
God extends a helping hand even to those souls who misuse their freedom, patiently waiting until they have become aware of their faults.
And so you see, he has put this great project into practice.
So, I love that saying, the earth should be purified by the inner light of its own people. And that's how the earth will be purified. By people waking up to the truth and making the effort to make their own lives and hearts shine. And that's one of the missions of Happy Science, is to teach people how to do that. That's on this next seminar. But so these Alcantari, this great plan has been sending many guiding spirits to the earth over a period of time and building up towards this moment in time, where we can create a change on the earth and create a new age and a new civilization on the earth. You know, I believe the Hell Realm has served humankind as a purpose, because actually, unless you know evil, you can't really know good. I think all of this is all part of God's great plan. Evil seems so bad, the hell seems so bad, but actually it has a purpose. You know, it teaches us right from wrong, it helps us acquire wisdom, but it also, like everything, it reaches a time where enough is enough, we need to grow past that stage. And I truly believe that this is that the human beings right now, it might seem the darkest stage, but actually I believe that that's what we're entering now. We're entering a golden age where we ourselves are going to move away from this age of problems of the darkness and the problems of the evil. But it won't be because somebody comes and changes it for us. It won't be someone comes and tidies up our own room. You know, that would take away what is our greatest gift, which is our free will. You know, as he said, human beings have free will. Well, part of having free will comes responsibility, right? If we were created so that we can only have good thoughts, there's no free will there, right? If I can only have good thoughts, if I can only say good things, and I can only think good things about everybody, then that's not free will. You know, free will means I'm free to think, speak, and act however I like, right? But responsibility and understanding means understanding that, and discipline means being able to keep my mind pointed in the right direction, keep my thoughts in the right direction, my words and my actions always pointed in a way towards God. Why? For happiness, you know, for my happiness and the happiness of other people. So as we learned here, that evil's a distortion by the conflict of free will. Okay, so evil comes about from my free will and somebody else's free will. And Jasmine's not here. I remember we were talking about this once with Jasmine, was that, for instance, if I'm on my way home from drinking at the pub one night and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, my free will says to me that I should be able to sing at the top of my voice outside your house, right? But if you wake up and you hear me singing, and if anyone's heard me singing, there's plenty of reason to be angry because it's not a sweet lullaby. So you might get angry, but you're angry at me, but your free will says you want to sleep. My free will says I want to sing, right? So actually, the negativity that's created between our two free will coming into conflict, that's where the evil gets created. So now you open up your window, you start cursing me, I start cursing you, then we have a fight, you kill me, you go to jail, you know, and the whole thing goes on. And this is how it all happens. But what we're doing when we're doing that is we're feeding the hell realm. All that negative thoughts are fueling the hell realm, and the people or the lost souls down there are becoming, is feeding their energy. And of course, meanwhile, Satan is laughing. Yeah, that's what's been going on. So we are now going to look at the time of the Mu. At the Mu Emperor, at the time of Mu, Emperor Mu, or Lamu, descended around about 17,000 years ago. So we're really moving into current history now. Just 17,000 years ago, there was a continent called Mu, and the area of it was in the ocean similar to where Indonesia is today. Mu's actually since sunk, right? But we'll discover why Mu sunk. You probably already have a feeling why Mu might have sunk. But we're going to have a look at Mu descending to, Lamu descending to Mu, and the teachings that he gave that was able to change the people. Well, first of all, we're going to see how Mu was before Lamu arrived. And then we're going to see what happened after Lamu arrived. And I think when we see Mu, the way Mu was then before Lamu, we'll recognize similarities to our own society today. And it doesn't seem much when you see the way the people are acting. It seems quite normal, but you see the result of how the society was working because of the way they were thinking.
The continent of Mu appeared on Earth approximately 370,000 years ago. It was about twice the size of Australia and located where Indonesia now stands. 20,000 years ago, the first signs of civilization appeared, and 3,000 years after that, under the reign of Lamu, the civilization was able to reach its peak. At the time, the continent was called the Moa continent, but it soon became known as the Mu continent, taking the name of Lamu, the light of El Cantare that descended to Earth.
So nice of you. Can I have one of those too?
The Mu Empire has entered the age of advanced solar technology, and the people are enjoying its prosperity.
Hey, you're late. Hurry up.
But I am concerned. The people are losing sight of something very important.
Agun, why don't you pray with me?
This is the age of advanced solar technology. Who needs silly prayer? Why am I being dropped from the team?
That's a done deal already, so quit your complaining.
You're forgetting that this project was my idea in the first place.
Well, I guess the boss changed his mind. Go take it up with him if you want.
I get it now. You were using me all along.
Whatever you say, buddy. One just cannot afford to be naive when living in a dog-eat-dog world such as this. Isn't that the advice you gave me once? The truth of the matter is, no one really gets along with you.
And what's wrong with calling those lazy workers useless?
What? It's no wonder that not one of them vouched for you.
Have you heard about that big new hospital that opened? I hear they let you take a bath every day.
It sounds nice. I'm sorry, we're really short on staff right now.
It's all right. I know you can't do anything about it. Hey, Miss Yana, I'm feeling kind of thirsty. Can I have some water?
Yes. This will only take a minute. I'll be right back. Hey, hurry up over there. This rash is driving me crazy. Yes, ma'am.
Miss Yana?
Yes?
I am having a terrible stomach ache. Could you please call the doctor for me?
Oh, where does it hurt?
Leave that work for the real doctor. Just hurry up and get me some water.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Unbelievable.
They have such lousy service here. You can't expect much. After all, it is a free hospital for the poor.
If only my son made more money, then I could transfer to a better hospital for decent treatment. Yeah.
Get out of the way! Move! Move! Move!
Please, I beg of you. I just need a little more time.
I think you've wasted enough of my time already. So now it is your turn to make good on that promise to me.
But I can't afford to lose my plant right now.
It's no longer your plant anymore. I'll take care of the employees.
Wait, no, please reconsider.
Your Majesty? Your Majesty. Your Majesty, it is time for you to get ready.
Even now, people are straying from their spiritual paths. The traditional primitive worship of the sun is no longer capable of nurturing people's souls in this new age. We need a higher teaching. A teaching that will contribute to the prosperity of our society and enrich our souls through faith.
You know, I remember just when I see this, it always reminds me of a time when I was working for a company, and I had already known the teachings of happy science for quite some time, but I had been forgetting to practice them for a while. And I was working for a printing company as a sales rep, and I had quite high budgets, and always I was just concentrating on focusing on my budgets and my sales, and trying to do well in my job. And I remember there was a lady, Sharon, who used to work behind me, and she wasn't very good on the computer, and she would ask something and I'd show her how to do it, and then within a day she would ask the same thing again and I'd show her, and then within another day or two the same. So she wasn't very good at remembering on the computer. Well, I remember building up this frustration with her in my mind, and I stopped being helpful, and I actually started to, if she asked for help, I would actually do it, but always do it in a way so she knew that I was putting myself out to help her. And this is not love that gives, right? This isn't love that gives, this is love that takes. I was making her feel uncomfortable because she was asking for my help, and I was giving her my help and making her feel like, I'm doing something for you. And then one day I was driving to work, and I thought to myself, I'm not as happy as I used to be. And I started thinking, I thought, well, I'm not practicing the teachings of happy science anymore. I've stopped making the effort of giving love. I'm not doing any meditation. I'm not studying the spiritual truth. I have no prayer in my life. And I thought, well, it's no wonder you stopped being happy. You stopped practicing those teachings that have brought you so much happiness. So I decided on that day, I remember thinking, that's it. From today, when I get back home, I'm going to stop just go home, watch the TV, smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, and then go to work in the morning, and then go home and watch TV and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And that was pretty much what my life had turned into a bit. And I remember thinking, from tonight I'm going to go home and I'm going to back studying these teachings and putting them into practice. And in that moment I heard in my heart something say, it's time. I thought, oh, it was like Master Okawa, it's time. So I went to work. And that day, instead of, I decided to stop smoking. That's one thing. So in the breaks, the morning tea, the lunch, the afternoon teas, instead of just going out and drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, I'd sit at my desk and I'd start reading books of truth, studying truth. When Sharon asked me for help, I would enjoy helping her. I made the effort to actually do it with the heart of giving rather than the heart of taking. And I can honestly say that, my life just turned around. I'd get home that night, and instead of just watching TV, I'd choose what I was going to watch. I just didn't say no TV. I'd choose what I was going to watch. Just didn't watch mindless TV. Spend some time meditating, spend some time studying. And my whole happiness switched around to the extent that actually people at the company I was working at would say, Steve, how come you're so happy? People were literally saying to me, Steve, why are you so happy? And I'd say, well, I started studying the teachings again. And I remember one day, this girl, lady Sharon, who worked behind me, one day I invited her. I said, Sharon, would you like to become a member of Happy Science? She said, yes, please. And she signed up and received the little Dharma book. And about a month or two later, she gave me probably the biggest compliment I've ever received in my life. She said, do you know why I joined Happy Science? I said, no. She said, because I saw the change in you. Oh, wow. And it became that obvious that I had turned my life around, that people were saying to me, Steve, why are you so happy? And I was genuinely happy. Well, what we've just seen here with the people living in Mu, they were living materialistic lives. They were very much like the people living today. They've lost sight of the truth. There is no faith. We live in a faithless society. If you say you believe in God in today's society, people probably think that you're an oddball. You're believing in something that can't be proven. So a lot of people have lost their faith. So what we're going to see now is Lamu do a wonderful speech to the people, talking to them about love and filling their hearts with love. And then after that we'll see the result of the society of what happens when people start practicing, putting this love into practice.
Yana, we're over here! Here! Oh, I'm so glad you came. Now the three of us can celebrate the king's birthday together. Cheer up, it'll be fun.
Hey, mister, are you okay?
Through the use of solar technology, our civilization has been able to make great advancements and achieve remarkable progress. And it is in the midst of this prosperity that I make the following announcement. The time has finally arrived to establish the kingdom of God. But before we can do that, you must first know what God is. Like the sun, God is filled with immeasurable light. And like that light, He will continuously pour His love onto us without ever asking for anything from us in return. When you become aware of this love, you'll know. You'll understand. You will know that God just like the sun. As children of God, it is necessary for human beings to learn to live in the spirit of giving love. Living with the spirit of love means sharing what God has given you with others around you, instead of keeping it for yourself. One must never be selfish. Casting the light of love into others' hearts and making them happy, this is the act of giving love. Furthermore, all you people of Mu must remember to constantly work towards self-improvement. Not only in academic learning or technical skills, but you must especially aim for spiritual improvement.
For spiritual improvement?
The most important thing in your life is to strive for spiritual improvement through various experiences in life. Because ultimately, this is what will bring you closer to God. That being said, do not waste your life. Do not waste this year. Do not waste a single day. And do not ever end a day, a minute, or a second without learning something. People of Mu, the time has now come for you to rediscover your true selves once again. And it is time to fill this land with happiness. And let us establish a magnificent utopia on the glorious continent of Mu. This is the reason why all of you were born into this glorious age.
It is the light of the sun. I see it now. The sun has descended to Earth.
So does anybody, when they feel like praying or put their hands together, do this naturally? Because if you do, you probably were around Mu. Because often, even I see in Happy Science, sometimes people when they pray, they like this. And the descendants of Mu, apparently when they prayed, often had their hands up like this. Actually, we are all the descendants of all these civilizations. So all of us were probably alive in this continent of Mu at some stage. Unless you've arrived recently from another planet. But, you know, we've all traveled through all these different continents, through these different civilizations, I mean, and different times. So we are the same people that actually lived on these different times. So, yeah, I don't think what we're watching is people separate from ourselves. That was then and this is now. It's all just a continuation. Well, you know, this teaching of love, like Mu was talking about, and this idea that true love is a love that gives, a love that is given freely, this was a teaching in the book, The Laws of the Sun, that changed my life the most. If I have to say about what it was in my life that's had the biggest change in my life ever so far, it was when I found The Laws of the Sun in the Auckland Library in New Zealand in 1994. I was seeking, seek and ye shall find, right? I was looking on the shelf. I came to the book, The Laws of the Sun. Something in my heart said, oh, that looks interesting. I took it off the shelf and I started reading it. And I just found it so inspiring and so amazing. I sat down on the floor for a few hours and just read as much as I could before I took it out of the library. But at the same time in my life, I was actually in a relationship with a lady, and she had said to me, I'm going to marry you one day. I didn't say anything. Maybe I should have said, yeah, that's a good idea. But actually, I didn't say anything at the time, and thought, oh, really? And then time went by, and 3 months went by. I'd actually known her for a long time. Our lives had crossed when she was maybe 12 and I was 14, and she used to get music lessons across the road from where I lived. And by now I'm 30 years old. So, but our lives had always intertwined. And then we started having a relationship for about 3 months. One day I happened to bump into an ex-girlfriend. That night, at home, in bed with Linda, I said, oh, I bumped into Miore today, just to be honest. Oh, and suddenly she just went really quiet, didn't want to talk about it. I said, what's the matter? Wouldn't talk about it. Next morning, wouldn't talk about it. Next day, I'm going back to Steve because you're going to end up with Miore anyway. What? So she left. And you know what? It was the first time in my life I'd ever felt that I wanted to marry somebody. I thought I really saw my future with her. She had a couple of children, and I love them dearly, and they love me, and I thought, this is my future. Well, when she left, it was the most suffering I'd ever experienced in my whole life. And this is at the same time I'm reading the Laws of the Sun. And when I'm reading the Laws of the Sun, there's this passage, this teaching on love that Master taught, that the essence of love is giving. And if you're suffering, you're taking love. True love is love that gives. You know what? I spent about 2 weeks really reflecting deeply and meditating deeply, because every time I tried to meditate, I'd just start thinking about Linda again. I mean, we all know what it's like. As soon as you've got a problem in your mind, when you want to have a calm mind, that problem just seems to come into your mind, and it just goes over and over and creates a suffering. So in the midst of the suffering, I would try to meditate. I kept thinking about Linda. So then I started contemplating this idea. The essence of love is giving. If you're suffering, it means you're taking love. And I thought, I'm not taking love. I just want us to be together. I love Linda. I want to create a beautiful life for us together. I just want us to be together. And I realized this whole I want us to be together was what I wanted. I wanted us to be together. I wanted her to be with me. I wanted her to give me love like I was giving her love. I wanted to create a situation where we were together both loving each other, me and you. So I give and you give. And when I went on to read that the love actually comes from God. It flows from the universe. The universe is full of love, and it comes from God, and then we have the opportunity to give love. And in the giving the love is when we experience love. That's what love is. It's actually the giving. The giving of love is what love is. And I remember thinking this day had the most profound effect. This moment had the biggest effect on my whole life. I was sitting there, and I suddenly felt like a rebel, actually. I thought, that's it. I don't care anymore. I don't care what Linda thinks. I'm going to love her anyway. And in that moment, I felt this weight lift off my shoulders. I felt this incredible feeling from my heart of joy, of just love for her. And I sat there just feeling this bliss from my heart of, I do love her. I really do love her. It doesn't matter what she's doing, who she's with, where she is. It doesn't matter anything. I just love her. And I realized I will never be unhappy again. Just give love. Don't expect anything back. Just enjoy loving people. That's the truth. Just love people. Don't expect anything back. Love doesn't come from other people. That's the icing on the cake. Of course, we all love to be loved. But don't look for that. Enjoy the feeling of love coming from God through you to others. Just find joy in that. And then your life will be full of joy with no chance of anyone taking it away, because you're not dependent on anybody else. And that, honestly, I'm so grateful to Master Okawa for that one teaching alone, because that changed my life. So this teaching from Mu, I think, is all about that. It's about finding within ourselves this diamond within, or the sun within ourselves, and concentrating on just letting our sun radiate to the people around us, loving the people around us, and not expecting anything back. And this is how we feel happiness. Okay, so we've seen the continent of Mu, and the continent of Mu actually went through a great time, but like all these things that keep going, rising and falling, Mu doesn't exist in the world today, and Mu had a time where it fell, and so we're going to see the fall of Mu. But the people from Mu, like I said, they're actually our ancient ancestors, and the people that left Mu, as we'll see in here, I won't say, but from here we'll find out where the people of Mu left and who they became the descendants of.
Lamu was not only a great religious leader, but he was an excellent ruler as well. Each night, he would converse with the high spirits, and ask for their advice on determining national policies.
This is how we should govern a country. Rulers should humble themselves before God, opening their heart and listening to what He says. For if they were to make a mistake, it would affect the lives of the whole population. To make important decisions without seeking advice from God first, this is a sign of extreme arrogance.
Do you think you can move that to the right a little more?
Sure.
Keep up the good work.
You've made great progress. Coming!
Lamu, also known as the Great Light of Mu, illuminated people's souls, and under his guidance, the Empire reached the peak of prosperity. He proved to humankind that right faith can bring infinite happiness to each individual, and prosperity to an entire society.
However, after the death of Lamu the Great, things began to change. His people gradually forgot his teachings, and the empire, which was once at the peak of its glory, began its eventual decline. Those who had forgotten the great teachings of Lamu were unable to accept the power of enlightenment. They mocked his teachings of love and compassion.
Until ultimately, the continent of Mu disappeared deep beneath the ocean in 3 stages. Some of the Mu were able to escape in boats. These were the ancestors of the Vietnamese, Japanese, and Chinese peoples.
But some others sailed eastward. After the disappearance of the Mu continent, El Cantare's light descended onto the continent of Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean. Some of the Mu made their way to Atlantis and brought with them their science and technology. The civilization of Atlantis reached its peak when Thoth, the Great Master, descended to the continent around 12,000 years ago.
Thoth, the omniscient and omnipotent, had great knowledge in a number of fields, ranging from religion, politics, philosophy, science, and art. Under the guidance of Thoth, Atlantis developed a civilization based on advanced technology that even Mu could not rival.
Thoth then cast the light of wisdom upon his people, which accelerated the progress of civilization.
After which, the light made its way to Egypt, then to Greece, and then to Rome. It became the original source of Western civilization that blossomed later in history.
Okay, so now I'd just like to really point out something. I'm going to jump forward a little bit into very modern time, well, when I say modern compared to what we're talking about, because in a moment I'm going to talk about the time of Shakyamuni Buddha in India, which is only 2,500 years ago. But just before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about Alcantari and the brother souls of Alcantari. What you can see from this chart here is that there is a great light in the middle, the central core, which is the Alcantari consciousness. And brother souls of this Alcantari consciousness, or parts of this Alcantari consciousness, have been incarnating on the earth, what we've been watching here, throughout time, aiming to guide civilizations and people towards happiness, towards in the right direction, towards God. So the very first one that we saw today was Lamu from the Mu Empire, about 17,000 years ago. Then we've just seen Thoth from Atlantis. That was around about 12,000 years ago. One we haven't seen today because we don't have time for everybody, but Rientar Cloud was of the Inca age. Now, Rientar Cloud descended around about 7,000 years ago because at that time in the Inca age, they were worshipping aliens. You know, in South America, they've got these great landing strips built up in the mountains. They've got things on the ground that can only be seen from the sky, and they were wondering why they were, and they've got pictures of like flying saucers. Actually, Master Okawa teaches that at that time, aliens had come to South America and were making up that they were God. Because the South Americans had a legend passed down from the people that came from Atlantis in the flying ships, there had been a legend passed down about God coming in from the sky. So when the aliens turned up, they believed, oh, God's returned, and they started to worship the aliens, and the aliens were creating problems for them. So at that stage, Rientar Cloud descended to teach people the truth that God's found within you. God's not outside. Just because somebody can fly, that doesn't make them God. God's found within you. So that was Rientar Cloud. Orpheus was born in Greece, and then also born in Greece was Hermes, and then the most current one from a brother soul from Alcantari is Gautama Siddhartha. So Gautama Siddhartha, or who became the Buddha, is a pretty well-known, very famous person, and his teachings have been passed on for the last 2,500 years and brought happiness to many, many people. So what we will have the opportunity to do today is to see in a moment, well, first of all, we're going to have a look at what it felt like for the Buddha. I mean, Master Okawa teaches, he knows 100% that his very last life was as the Buddha in India. Now, in his meditations, he knows 100% that he's from the same life or energy force as Alcantari. So he can actually go into his mind and experience it as if the enlightenment was happening to him today. So he can explain to us exactly what it was like. So we're going to have a portrayal of what the Buddha felt like when he attained his enlightenment. Okay, so, but just as for anybody, probably most people here understand a bit about the Buddha, but the Buddha himself was born in a very privileged circumstances. He was born as a prince in a castle. And but by the age of 29, even though he pretty much had everything, you know, it'd be like being somebody today who was super rich or a real big film star that everybody loves and thinks that's the ideal life. But he felt unhappy. So even though he seemed to have everything, he felt unhappy. He felt something was missing. So at 29, he left the castle and he became an ascetic, because those days in India they thought that the way to enlightenment was denial of the self. So he would do things like bury himself in the sand up to his head, sit under waterfalls, sit in a cave watching drips for months on end, but and eating very, very, very little, and till he became skin and bones. But at the age of 35, he had almost passed away from a lack of nutrients. And you know, the story goes that one day a young village girl came by singing, and she was so happy and vibrant, and she offered him a bowl of cereal. He realized that he would pass away if he didn't eat soon, so he decided to eat it, which was actually completely against his ascetic training. He ate this food, sat and meditated, felt the wonderful energy flow through his body from eating this food, and he started reflecting on his life so far and realized that, this girl who wasn't even seeking enlightenment, she was so vibrant and so beautiful and so happy. She was skipping and dancing and singing, and he who was seeking enlightenment was miserable. So there must be something wrong about the way he was seeking enlightenment. And the song she'd been singing was about a lute or a guitar-like instrument in India. And the song went along the lines that if the strings are too tight, they'll snap, and if they're too loose, they won't play. But if they're just right, they all play beautiful music. And he reflected and thought, maybe this is the right way of spiritual training, to find the middle way. We should avoid the extremes. Living in the castle as a prince where I had all the luxuries of life, that was extreme. There's no real happiness felt there because the desire for more never ends. But the other side of it, the asceticism of self-denial and torturing and punishing myself also didn't bring any happiness. So maybe the way of spiritual training is to find a path through the middle, to discipline myself, give my body what it needs to be happy, to look after my body, to keep it healthy, and every day concentrate on training my mind while I look after my body. And after that period of time, when he discovered that, he started to accept food each day, meditated night and day, and concentrated his mind till he found a beautiful, perfect calmness inside. And he discovered what we call in happy science as his divine nature or his Buddha nature. He created within himself and found the mind of God within and had the experience of becoming one with the universe, because we all are one with the universe. We're all at different stages of what we're experiencing, but within the heart of each one of us, we have divine nature. We are one with God. So since we already have that, once we find that and experience it, we feel God. And that experience is available to every one of us. So we don't have to be special. You don't have to be Jesus or Buddha to have this experience. All of us, by going deeper and deeper and deeper inside ourselves, can have the experience of experiencing a nirvana within. Happiness is within each one of us. We just quiet our mind and we find it. But let's look at the experience of the Buddha, about how Master Okawa portrays how it felt for the Buddha when he attained his enlightenment under the pipal tree.
No matter what kind of thoughts I have, even considerate thoughts for my family, if they turn into attachment, they will cause great suffering. I must become unattached. I must become like the water in a stream that keeps running. I must pass on my knowledge of this enlightenment to others.
We'd all like to experience that. So the feeling of oneness, love is oneness. Love means no separation. So oneness with the whole universe. The more we feel oneness, the more we can feel the oneness with ourselves and others and everything. So I think that's just by watching that, I can start to feel the oneness of becoming one with the universe. And so, okay, so everybody has Buddha nature, and Buddha nature is the nature of enlightenment. And So, today I said that it was going to be about love, enlightenment, and the creation of, and the mission of humankind, creation of utopia. So we listened to Lamu's teaching on love and, Buddha's teachings about enlightenment. And really the two are connected because really the enlightenment is discovering the love within yourself. It is discovering your own sun of love, your own sun that is burning brilliantly within yourself, always. Our thoughts sometimes create clouds around our beautiful sun. So we are the ones that actually hold ourselves back from the experience of experiencing this wonderful feeling of giving love to everybody. So we remove those dark clouds and the sun just shines. But now we are really lucky to be able to watch out of this movie a sermon from the Buddha. So imagine 2,500 years ago. Actually, no doubt, some of the people here today must have been with the Buddha 2,500 years ago. No doubt at all. But of course, that's a distant memory. So let's watch the sermon that Master Okawa has shown us as the type of sermon that Buddha would have given. And this one was in his later years, close to his death.
I'm glad to see all you monks and nuns gathered here. Ever since my enlightenment 40-some years ago, I have always taught you to strive for your own spiritual progress, while at the same time extending a helping hand to those in need of salvation. I have always tried to teach the profound truth in a way so that most could understand it. But now I am finally prepared to show you all true enlightenment, which I attained while under the Bodhi tree.
True enlightenment?
Truth is always found in what is simple. Those who give love are considered good. Those who take love from others are considered bad. The good return to heaven, and the bad will fall to hell. Angels smile upon those with positive thoughts, and negative thoughts will only attract those that are evil. Exploration of the right mind will lead you to enlightenment, whereas exploring the wrong mind will throw you into despair. But remember, even those who have fallen into hell are allowed to return to heaven as long as they recognize their mistakes and repent, because human beings are all children of God, and each one has Buddha nature within them.
Buddha nature.
Regardless of one's birth, regardless of one's social status, regardless of gender or of profession, and regardless of any sins they may have committed in their past. By taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and by continuing in spiritual discipline, all souls will be saved and guided to the path to Buddha.
Buddhism is basically about the law of cause and effect, right? So it's a very, so I said everything, it's very simple, you know, good cause yields a good result and a bad cause yields a bad result. So everything's very simple in the idea of Buddhism. And just when he said the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, for people who aren't familiar with Buddhism, Buddha means the enlightened one, Dharma is the Buddha's teachings, and the Sangha is the people who follow the teachings of Buddha. Okay, so I really want to keep moving along here because we started a little bit late and I've got a little 5 minutes over time. So What I want to move here on to now is to talk about is to show very briefly some more of the sermon from the Buddha, where he predicted, the Buddha always said he would return, okay? Buddha, there are actually two types of Buddhism, Mahayana and Theravada. Mahayana Buddhism believes in the reincarnation of the Buddha over and over and over again. Theravada Buddhism tends to not believe that. So even within Buddhism, there's different ideas. But we definitely believe in the reincarnation of the Buddha, because the Buddha is a being that has compassion for all people. Buddha loves everybody. Buddha wants to save everybody. So if you can imagine a great being like that, when he's left this world and goes back to the great heavenly world, if he looks down, of course he's going to say, the people are still suffering, I must go back. So we believe the Buddha will always return.
This universe was not created without a purpose. Nothing in heaven occurs by accident, and nothing here on earth was created without a purpose. Even a leaf does not fall off a tree by accident. It is subject to God's law. The primordial God's will connects all things in the universe.
And so is this how the universe was created?
How great the primordial God is! His will has existed before recorded time, before the universe was even created. His will embraced, loved, and nurtured all things in the universe. And as such, he instructed his children, "My dear creatures, strive to be great beings. Strive to be as I am." And thus, each of your souls was created.
Souls.
A light identical to that of the primordial God, the parent of your soul, resides in each one of you. That is what we call the Buddha nature. Have faith. This does not mean worshipping that which is invisible and far away. No. For within each and every one of you lies the very existence of the great Buddha. But people forget even this simple truth as they go about their lives. And as civilization is enjoying its latest glory, evils rise up. Clouds of dark thoughts cover the land, and huge disasters take place.
Then what will eventually become of our civilization?
Is this the future of mankind?
I cannot believe it.
Do not fear darkness, for no matter how dark and hopeless this world may become, I promise you, the sun will rise again.
The sun will rise again?
From under the sun of truth, which will permeate through the darkness and shine onto Earth, human beings will build a new civilization once again. When the world sinks in darkness, and there is a need for light, that is when I will descend from the heavens and return to the earth, bringing forth a new light of hope.
The rebirth of the Buddha.
He will return to us.
He will descend again?
"2,500 years from now, I will descend again to the land in the east and teach the laws of the sun."
So the Buddha promised 2,500 years from his death he would be reborn again, and when the world was in darkness. Well, there's no doubt the world's in darkness right now. And actually, interestingly enough, the 2,500 year date came up when Master Okawa was born in 1956. In India, there was a celebration at that time for the rebirth of the Buddha, the 2,500 years from the return of the Buddha. So we believe absolutely 100% that now is the time for the Buddha to be reborn. We believe 100% that Master Okawa is the Buddha that's been returned to Earth. But actually, I'd like to actually reveal something that's the most wonderful thing of all. When we see this chart here of the reincarnations of the Buddha and all the brother souls, we believe that actually the advent that is happening now is more than just a return of the Buddha. And then the next, which is the last skit that I'm about to show you, shows exactly how big this event is. This event is what we call the descent of Alcantari himself. Alcantari is like we've learned a lot about Alcantari today. Okay, we've learned that Alcantari is the original consciousness that created life on Earth. Alcantari is the same consciousness that created life on Venus. Alcantari is the light of the Earth. Generally, it's not the responsibility of Alcantari to come to the Earth. Alcantari normally guides from the other world. Alcantari sends the saviors and gives them the teachings to pass on Earth. That's normally Alcantari's role. But the time has come when the world needs a big change and a big creation of a golden age, and this requires an immense amount of power and light. Master Okawa said, here's the descent of the very core consciousness of Alcantari. Alcantari has only descended ever 3 times in the whole history of the Earth. The very first time was like about 300 million years ago, and he was called Alpha. 150 million years ago, his name was Elohim, or El, as he's spoken about in the Old Testament. And this is today, and this is the Advent. And the power that's contained in Alcantari is enough to bring about the change in the world that we need. But actually, Alcantari, sure, is the light, but it's also up to us. We can't just think, oh, that's great, I'll sit back on the couch and watch it all happen, because we are the ones that bring it about. But he supplies us the power to make the changes in the world. So I really want to watch right now this very powerful clip that shows and help us understand just how big this moment in the history of the Earth is right now that we're experiencing.
Every single time that my brother souls have descended to the Earth, they have dedicated themselves to the creation of a utopia on that land. But in 2,500 years from now, the golden light will descend to a land in the East, with the greater mission of creating an ideal land on a global scale.
Create an ideal land on a global scale?
Buddha will extend salvation. He will offer to all the people on earth, and he will purify the entire world. He will immerse the world with his tremendous light of enlightenment, that of which has never been seen before. Furthermore, he will shine down his light of compassion. It will illuminate even the depths of hell and free its inhabitants from the prison of their souls. Thus, Earth will enter the age of the sun.
I just can't believe this.
It sounds too good to be true.
The one who will descend into the land in the east will be the very core of my spirit. He is the eternal Buddha, Grand Savior, also known as the Lord El-Kantare.
Eternal Buddha will descend.
The parent of human souls will finally descend to Earth?
The eternal Buddha, El-Kantare, is a supreme existence that possesses all the features of light of my brother souls that have ever descended to Earth, and is even mightier than all these energies combined. It is the source of the light that keeps illuminating mankind from time immemorial and toward the eternal future. Essentially, it is not supposed to incarnate on Earth.
It's amazing! It must be a miracle!
Then that means we all must have
studied the truth through numerous reincarnations.
We were waiting for that moment.
The Master is who teaches the laws, while the disciples spread the laws. Awaken to your mission and be well prepared, and assemble before eternal Buddha. El Cantare!
Yeah, so, you know, this is the Advent. This is the moment. We are living in the age of miracles. You know, if what I've said to you today is true, it's a miracle, right? If what I've said today is true, I can't prove to you it's true. I believe it to be true. I wouldn't be standing here. Otherwise, I'd be surfing. But, you know, I 100% from everything I've seen in Happy Science since I became involved in 1994, I absolutely believe that Master Okawa really is the advent of the greatest saviour ever to earth. His teachings, you know, who can write 900 books? Who can write 52 books in a year? Meanwhile, also organising schools and also organising universities and organising political parties for Japan because he wants to help with the politics. So many things. It's a miracle what I'm seeing. When I first went to Japan in 1994, Happy Science had only been going for 8 years. It had been established for 8 years. I got there not knowing what to expect. I got there 3 days before this event from Master Okawa. They said, "Oh, good timing, Steve, you're here just in time for Master Okawa's big lecture at Tokyo Dome." Oh, great. So I went along. Well, you know, this is what I saw. This is what I saw after 8 years. Okay, Master Okawa, after preaching for 8 years, was gathering audiences like this. So it requires an incredible amount of energy to gather this sort of people together after 8 years. And since this time, Happy Science is now spread around the world to over 90 countries. Master Okawa has now given lectures in more than 5 continents. And, you know, there's a very, very good chance that he will be coming back to Australia in October. We haven't been given an exact date. We're really, really hoping that he will come back. But you know, he's obviously very busy and we're waiting to hear if that's going to be possible. But, you know, this is the moment in the human history where things change. That the golden age is, oh, you keep picking on me. The golden age is here. It's around the corner. The golden age is a few steps forward, but it's us that will create the golden age. Now, we're about to see a big change on the earth, but the change is going to happen from the teachings of Master Okawa, us embracing the teachings of Master Okawa, understanding the truth of who we are, where we come from, and putting it all into practice. So, you know, anybody who's here today, if you haven't already become a member of Happy Science, please join Happy Science, be part of this movement, receive the little blue book. If anybody has already become a member of Happy Science and really feels that you know, this is the truth and they want to do devotion to the 3 treasures, because before I said the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha are the 3 treasures in Buddhism. If you decide you want to actually say, yeah, I really do believe this, and you'd like to receive the full set of prayer books, then please just let us know, and we have this full set of prayer books. And I'd like to ask, you know, Reverend Imai is actually visiting from Japan today, and we have a small ceremony where you pledge your devotion to the 3 treasures. This is Mr. Imai here. And anybody who would like to do devotion to the 3 treasures, please take this opportunity and do it today. But you know, this whole series of seminars, and this is the second one, as we know. You know, the first one was a trip through the spirit world. This one's been a real, so much. Thank you all so much for keeping your mind so concentrated today on this. You know, I look around the room, there's so many bright faces, so I really feel that people stuck with it. I know, look, we're almost half an hour over time, but people are still with it. And so thank you very much for putting in the energy to stay with it. But, you know, we've heard a big picture today, right? We've heard from the creation 100 billion years ago up to today, seen the whole history of the earth, you know, the essence of love, the essence of enlightenment, the mission of humankind, how we're going to change this world. So this has been the third seminar, which is on the 22nd of next month, is actually much more practical. It's called Living a Golden Life. Okay, the Living the Golden Life is actually about how we can become these people that are going to change the world. How we ourselves can brighten up our own heart. How we ourselves can discover this sun within ourselves and make it shine to create the golden age. So the third one's much more practical. The first one has been an explanation of the truth of the spirit world. This one's been an explanation about the truth about the human soul, where we came from, and enlightenment, and so many other things. And the third one is going to be much more practical on how we can do it. So thank you all very much for coming. We have time for refreshments still and a Q&A if anybody would like to have any Q&A. But thank you all so much for coming. Arigato.